Welcome to the Veterans Impact Show, where our commitment is to help, hope, and healing of our veteran family and our nation. I'm Jim Blythe, a U.S. Navy veteran and a certified senior advisor. Join us as we continue the mission of leadership and commitment to our communities and our great country. Why, you never know where we're going to go or who you're going to meet. We invite you to join in, plug in, and share in what we do. This is your Veterans Impact Show. Hey, great day. This is Jim Blythe with my co-host, my great buddy, and my pastor,
That's right.
Cedric White.
Good to be here, Jim.
It's fabulous. And I'll tell you what, I must say that we have enjoyed being part of your church.
Amen.
It's the way we grew up, and it's family, and it's relationship.
Yes.
It's not religion.
Right.
And Cedric, you are an amazing pastor. So I tell people to go to Healing Thine Hearts. Is that right?
Well, Healing Thine Hearts is the counseling ministry. Heart Fellowship is the church.
Okay, Heart Fellowship. Go to heartfellowship.church.
Church. Yes, sir.
Okay. And you can see, and Cedric has been kind enough to coach me and let me preach a couple of times, and nobody get up and ran out. That was pretty good.
Nobody left. Chaplain Jim did an outstanding job.
That's because I've had people like you in my life.
Oh, praise God.
I think that this is one of the most important things that we need to start talking about is having relationships in your life that build your life up.
Right.
So this is Black History Month.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people said, and somebody questioned you when you were in the Navy.
Right.
Why Black History Month?
Yeah, that was a question. Good friend of mine asked, what's the need for to recognize, to set aside a month to commemorate, to recognize, to be attentive to what African Americans, what Black people had added to this country. And I appreciated it. I wasn't insulted by the question. I actually appreciated that he trusted me enough to ask me that question. And so I shared with him because of the level of segregation, because of the level of just coming from enslaving to segregation to trying to have a level of equality in this country, there was a decision made, and we're going to put a special time aside to where we recognize African Americans, where we recognize what's been added, where we recognize what's going on, and people will learn more about it. Because for the most part, we go on with our lives, and a lot of us have no idea of what has happened in this country from an African American or just a minority perspective.
And I think that's really, really important, because if we don't understand history, if we don't have a relationship and understand history, then we tend to repeat it. So while we may not be putting chains and irons on people,
right,
there are people coming into this country right now that people are afraid of.
Right.
People of Latin American descent, people of Oriental descent, people of Middle Eastern descent. Mm-hmm. And many of them come in under desperate circumstances to get away from.
Right.
Some of them coming for the wrong reasons. Mm-hmm. But across the board, we can't effectively color is a good way.
Right.
The entire population. And yes, we want them to come in legally. We want them to be vetted. But we also need to start improving education and assimilation programs.
Exactly.
So that we can honor. I mean, man, do you know anybody in the United States, in Texas, that doesn't love Tex-Mex food?
Right. No, okay. I don't know one because it's my favorite. So.
Yeah, okay. Well, I've been in San Francisco, and I love Chinatown.
Right.
So it's all about building relationships.
It is.
And in the military, believe it or not, I think the military led the way. Now, It led the way through a very checkered past in history.
Yes.
No doubt about it. But it led the way. And it really started with desegregation of the military in 1950 under President Truman.
Right.
With that or Executive Order 9981.
9981, yes.
9981. Yeah. Okay, and then on. So basically, the Korean conflict was the first conflict that had started coming to the forefront.
Right.
And there were some generals, MacArthur being one of them, was outspoken against it.
Mm-hmm.
But the first black naval combat aircraft carrier-based aviator,
Right.
Jesse Brown,
Yeah.
man, his story was told in the book Devotion and was in the movie Devotion.
Right.
Amazing.
Right.
And his wingman, who was Anglo, white, they ended up being very, very close.
Right.
And his wingman went back and crashed his plane to see if he couldn't get Jesse out of that plane
Right.
that he was trapped in. That's a relationship. That is the epitome of relationship.
Right.
And in the military, we always said, I don't care what color you are, what blah, 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 I got your six.
We depend on each other for life.
Okay.
Literally. If I'm going to spend my time disparaging you, not trusting you in a situation where we have an enemy coming at us, we've got a problem, because now that means I've got two enemies. But no, we had to watch each other. And I'll tell you, it wasn't until I got out of the military that I understood the brotherhood that actually existed in the military.
It
because
is close.
we had a as a matter of fact, my senior chief, I never forget, I came to the USS Arkansas as an E2. As an E2, and he was a senior chief. And senior chief, he said, White, here's what I need you to understand. Your job is to never let me be blindsided by anything. My job is to take care of you. And he gave an example. He said, so in other words, you may have no leave on the books, but if you need to go home to do something for your family, I've got you covered. But if I tell you to get your hind parts back here, you get back here, because that's going to make sure that I don't get in trouble, and neither do you.
Yeah.
On the other hand, when you're working, there should be no piece of equipment. I was a missile launcher, gunner's mate. There should be no piece of equipment, nothing that goes without me being aware that there's a problem. You cover me, you make me look good. I cover you, and I make your career good. And he did that. We took care of one another.
That's what it was all about.
That's what it was about.
Okay. Now, this is some sort of interesting, because when I started doing research, because the teacher needs to learn the most what he teaches, right?
Right.
Did I get that right?
You got it.
Okay, so let's go back. Let's just start with the American Revolution.
So you mean blacks in the military didn't start just in after Executive Order 9981? No, it started before that.
Yes.
Okay. Just
all right. You go back to the American Revolution.
Right.
There was somewhere between 5,000 and 9,000 African Americans that fought on the side of the U.S. government.
Yeah.
Now, there was about 20,000 that fought on the side of the British.
Right.
Because the British said, we'll make you free, we'll do this, we'll do that.
Right.
The 5,000 to 9,000 that fought on the side of the American Revolution, they weren't promised anything.
No.
They did it. They did it because of relationships they had, but they did it because they wanted to be free, but they did it out of a sense of belonging, a sense of honor.
Well, the Civil War, there were free and slaves who fought, right, in those battles, right? And they did that. And again, that sense of honor, that sense of we're going to fight for what is ours. We're going to protect what's ours. There's a sense of just we were going to protect one another. You take care of me, I take care of you.
Yeah.
And that's, again, quite often that's lost when we separate simply because I've got a little more melanin in my skin than you do, Jim. That becomes a problem.
I'm colorblind. I can't tell. No. And I think one of the things, again, it's about relationships, because my grandfather, Pete, in Corsicana, grew up in a black family.
Right.
And his black brother was a guy named Will Coleman, and I remember Will and his family coming over. And he put Will Coleman through college to be the first black veterinarian in the state of Texas.
Wow.
My grandfather had a lot of, and he always treated everybody with dignity and respect and love.
Right.
My other grandfather, who started stoking coal in 1920, said, man, you don't ever...
Stoking coal.
in the Navy on board ship.
All right, because most people may not know.
And he worked his way up through the hose pipe, which means from the bottom of the enlisted ranks,
Right.
he retired as a lieutenant commander in command of a ship.
Well,
And he said, you never, ever, ever judge a man till you understand his character and you walked in his shoes.
right.
Whoa, let me tell you, that never went away. So again, it's about building relationships. And so Pete was thrust into a black family to take care of him, and he developed relationships. So
Right.
I think that what we are indoctrinated in, what we believe to be true, what
Right.
we have been taught, ain't always true.
No,
It's called brainwashing.
Right.
Okay.
Well, again, we've talked about the level of it normally it goes on either one or the other side of the coin. Either it's just sheer ignorance because I don't know, and I act one way because I'm unaware, I'm uninformed, I'm unaware, and I just don't know about who this other race is. I don't know about this other culture, and so out of ignorance, I act a certain way, I think a certain way. And then there's the flip side is, okay, I act negatively out of, only thing I can say is sheer hatred, sheer racism. I hate you, I dislike you, I don't want anything to do with you because you're different, because you come from a different culture, you don't do things the same way that I do them, you don't look the same way that I do, right? There was a saying when we grew up, and again, this was, I've heard it said that, black people can't be racist. And I was like, I disagree with that. I disagree with that because they said racism only comes if you have the financial wherewithal to control somebody. And that's like, no, I disagree with that. But the saying used to be, don't bring her home if she can't use my comb. Well, that was a statement that because there's a hair difference there. But again, I've always been of the mindset, you love who you love. That's what love is. Love doesn't have the qualifications of love. Do not stem out of your culture, out of your race. The love should be rooted and grounded in that person's personality, that person's character, that person's integrity. Period.
Relationship.
And
understanding.
Right.
And I think that's hugely important. All right, let's go on to go from the American Revolution.
Right.
To the War of 1812. There were a whole bunch of slaves, African Americans, at the Battle of New Orleans. Many of them served with Jean Lafitte.
Right.
And they were freedmen.
Yeah.
They were also incredible shots and meaner than junkyard dogs as fighters, being pirates.
Right.
And that was acceptable at that time.
Well, the biggest thing, and we know this, Jim, is that quite often it was just either taught that African Americans or blacks at that time were inferior. They couldn't think. They couldn't perform, right? If it wasn't manual labor, right? And that's anybody if you're not taught. If education is held from you, right, then you can't add 2 + 2 if I haven't been educated to do that, right? But as I become educated, as I become skilled in doing things, well, then it was found out that African Americans and other races are just as skilled as anybody else. It shouldn't be just against black against white or white against black. There's just racial bigotry that goes down the line. And we'll find that each race can do, if they're taught what the other culture does, hey, we can all operate quite well in that instance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not always just black and white.
No, it's not.
Irish were treated horrible.
Yes.
Germans were treated horrible. So we celebrate Irish history every March.
Okay.
Yeah. St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day. It's already, you go in the store now.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go forward from there to the War of 1812. The next one, big one that came up was the Civil War.
Right.
Okay. There were about 180,000 African Americans that served in the Union Army.
Right.
There were some that served, I think, in the Confederate Army, but probably not a whole lot.
Well, no, and then they were forced to do so, right? You either fight with us or you die.
And there were some phenomenal heroes. There were some unbelievable battles.
Right.
And some honors given. And man, they were, I guess, Eye of the Tiger, maybe they were fighting for more than just a cause.
Right.
The cause, part of it was for freedom.
A lot of think about this, Jim. If you've come from a point to where you're totally free, or you've only heard, or you've seen areas where people are free to make decisions for themselves, they're free, and then you, on the other hand, you live in a situation where you're told, you're dominated, you're demanded to do menial tasks, sometimes even worse than that, right? And that's all you're ever given. You're giving the dregs, right? If we killed a hog, well, we'll give you the ears, we'll give you the feet, we'll give you the hog maw, we'll give you the chitlings, right? Most people have no idea. You ever had chitlins, Jim? Yeah. Most people haven't had chitlins. I won't eat them because I'm of the mindset that anything that starts out smelling that way, and after you cook it and you clean it, it still smells that way, and then you cook it and it still smells that way. But some people love it, right?
It tastes just like chicken.
Those were but that's what you were given. But yet and still, your job was to prepare the other pieces, the pork chops, the ribs, the shoulders, the roast, and you give that over here, and you get what's left, and all your life. So when you say, they were fighting like for the eye of the tiger, it's like, wow, we are actually fighting to have the opportunity to possibly have just a little taste of that. And a lot of people have no clue. If you haven't experienced discrimination, if you haven't experienced racism, then you have nothing to really, what do I want to say? You have nothing to really place an opinion there. You think everything is okay, and all of this talk about racism should be just put to the side because there is no racism. And I've heard it before that, we've had a black president. There's no racism anymore. That's not true.
That's not true. All right, we're going to take a break in a minute, and we're going to be talking again, not only about Black history, but about relationships. And bringing this nation back together. One of the most important things is we are thanking DBTV Network and AUN out in California for putting us on. When we come back, Cedric and I are going to tell you how to find us on DBTV and AUN on Roku, Amazon Fire, all of the networks that are carrying us. We'll be right back after these words from all of our partners. Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Heart's Ministry, and Symbios Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation.
Well, welcome back. I'm Cedric White, co-host of the Veterans Impact Show, here with my partner, Jim Blythe. Glad to be here, Jim. This week, we're talking about Black history. We're talking about this great country and how we're recognizing some of the things that this country has moved forward from, and some ways that we can learn about past history, and not just history, but what's going on today. There's so many things that would talk about making this country great. There's so many things that we can do that could make us even a more greater. You said it a couple of times, Jim. It's about relationship.
Exactly.
It truly is. It's not about religion, because quite often there's hatred when there's a different religion. Michelle and I in our office, we've had people of other religion. We've had Muslims. We've had Hindus in our office. And you know what? Love is love. Relationship is relationship. And I think that's where we need to start. There is a wonderful guy.
We used to go to 24-hour fitness up on Park Lane, over in East Richardson, I think. Anyway, I met this guy, and I saw him with these two, 12, 13-year-old kids. Mm-hmm. So finally one day I walked up to him, and very obviously Muslim.
Okay.
And he was a whole lot bigger than a lot of people. So he was about your size. Okay. Looked a lot like you.
He was a good
had
looking
a beard
guy.
Just like yours. And he had this, chrome dome.
Right.
I said, hey, this is so great that you're bringing your sons in here and teaching them and showing them working out. Well, Allie and I became friends. Allie runs the Dallas Gold and Silver Exchange.
Okay.
And Allie's helped me out a couple of times.
Right.
And we're great friends. And we talked a little bit about it, superficially, but I really enjoy it. And I'd like to, maybe sometime the three of us can get together. But it's, again, I've had, friends that were Muslim, friends that were black, friends that were Mexican, a lot of South Americans, because my aunt and uncle lived in Venezuela, and my mother spoke Spanish.
Okay.
And she was Irish, and we've had a lot of Irish family. Again, about building the relationships. So one of the things about the military is you're forced to build a relationship.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's go on just a little bit more, because this is all about, in the Civil War, there were some tremendously honored and distinguished people who fought in some enormous battles. And one of the things I think is great is I pulled up an article from the National Archive, Black Soldiers in U.S. History During Civil War.
Right.
I say to anybody, go read this. Go understand it.
Right.
Blow you away. Right towards the end of the Civil War, a lot of people were joining the military to get freedom.
Right.
And Lincoln did the Emancipation Proclamation. When it was done and over with, that was a huge, and a lot of people don't realize, we got Juneteenth. What's Juneteenth, Jimmy? Well, that was, nobody knew in Texas of the Emancipation Proclamation till June the 19th, because it came in through a Navy ship that went into Galveston.
Right. I tell you, talking about Juneteenth and the President Lincoln signing the Declaration of, not the Declaration of Independence, but freeing the slaves, Emancipation Proclamation. Thank you. One of the things that I had the opportunity to be a part of a conversation that was about, it was veterans sitting around campfire, and they were having cigars. And this was right after 2020, and after the George Floyd incident, when all of that was going on, and the nation was again having problems from a racial perspective. And they got into some pretty deep conversation. They started talking about Civil War. Why the Civil War happened, and there were a lot of different opinions. And one guy had a very, very strong opinion, and he sort of became the lead speaker for the group. And he was sharing that the Civil War was not about freeing the slaves. He was sharing that the Civil War was simply the South trying to keep government out of their business, trying to keep them out of the business. And I let him share long enough to, really make his case. And then I just, you mind if I share a little bit with you in reference to what was really happening? And he said, sure. I said, let me explain something to you. Yeah, there was they had a real hard time with the government telling them that they couldn't or could not have slaves. But the problem wasn't so much about the politics being involved. The problem was the fact that these farmers, these plantation owners, had free labor. No ifs, no ands, no buts about it. And you were about to get rid of my free labor. If I've got thousands of acres and I've got free labor to go and work that, now you're getting ready to take away that free labor. Not only did I have free labor, but the people who were performing the free labor were not even considered human. We're only 2/3 human. So guess what? If I decided that I no longer needed you, if I decided that you were not operating the way I wanted you to, I could go out, I could kill you, and there was nothing that could be done about it, because I didn't kill a human. I killed an animal.
Yeah, and one of the things in the world was, it wasn't really till after that period of time in world history that the vast majority of everything was done by muscle power. Mm-hmm. There were very few machines.
Exactly.
And so that was a huge economic. So as a result, the slaves were valuable.
Exactly. Oh, that's like if someone was to say, "Okay, Jim, I'm going to come and take your car now, and I'm going to free your car, and you get around as best you can." That would be a huge inconvenience.
Well, it'd be more than that.
Yeah.
And you might find me standing up for my car's rights
There you go.
whatever. All right, we're going to be back in a few minutes, and I said we were going to do it, and we didn't get a chance. So when we come back, we're going to talk about how you can find DBTV. We want you to share this. We want you to share it. So please go to veteransimpactshow.com and take a look. Go to the Veterans Impact Show on YouTube and Facebook. I think this show might excite kids' imagination or people's imagination to say, I need to understand that. I need to understand this. And I've been very fortunate. And we'll talk about that when we come back. This is Veterans Impact Show. Cedric and I are here for you. Stay with us and share us. Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Hearts Ministry, and Symbios Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation. Hey, Cedric, we're having too much fun.
Hey.
This could end up being a 3-hour program. And you and I are all about help, hope, and healing.
That's it.
Not only from a ministry standpoint, but from a broadcasting standpoint and what we do in our lives.
Right.
Because you and your wonderful wife, Michelle, who's joining us today in the studio, you are so involved in marriage management, marriage counseling.
Yes.
And that brings people together. That solves a lot of problems.
We do it from a premarital perspective, from a marriage perspective. Quite often, unfortunately, we have to assist people who are going through divorce and they need divorce care. But from a family, our heart is to heal the family, right? When we talk about here on the Veterans Impact Show, help, hope, and healing. That's what we want to provide. That's why God gave us the name Healing Thine Hearts. A lot of people are hurting. There are things below the surface that people need to deal with. And like what we're talking about today, there's some things below the surface that people don't even understand why they feel a certain way. But if they go below the surface, there could be some hope, there could be some help, there could be some healing that'll happen.
One of the things that really, really, really went wrong, and I think President Lincoln had a plan that he wanted to try and integrate and help people and lift people up. Mm-hmm. That's some of the things I read. Went the other way. Mm-hmm. And the Union troops went in, wreaked havoc. There was also a tremendous amount of fear by the whites in the South because of what had happened in the Caribbean.
Right.
And most people don't know that in the Caribbean, these islands were populated, and I don't mean 90%, they were probably 98% slaves.
Yeah.
And there were uprisings, and they killed all the white people.
Right.
There was a tremendous amount of fear. So fear kept everybody apart.
Yes.
That's my point.
Right.
That's where we get a lot of racism, I think, is because of fear. And if I saw a group of young men with bandanas walking up to me, and I was in certain parts of Dallas, there's no doubt in my mind that my mind would think, whoa. But you know what I've learned? Hey, how are you today?
Right.
And you never can tell. I mean, there are bad people, but there are great people. Guys pulled up next to me on a motorcycle the other day with a jacket, and I go, oh, man, I know him. Right.
I ride motorcycles, and I that look, I got the bandana on, I've got the jacket on, the full, and again, by appearances, you would think, this guy is a troublemaker. And my wife will tell you, I'm the biggest teddy bear you ever want to meet. Now, again, don't poke the bear, but
Well, these are important. So let's go, because we're kind of doing a quick history deal. And I'm interested in this because in 1966, Martin Luther King came to SMU, and I got to see him and I got to meet him. I got to tell you, there was a lot that he said that made a lot of sense.
Right.
So let's go to the next step. The next round of soldiers were the Buffalo Soldiers. And and they were out on the frontier
Right.
chasing the Indians.
Yep.
That's another form of racism, and there was fear.
Right.
And the Indians probably had some pretty good cause.
Oh, not probably. They had some pretty good. They had some good cause.
And I got some Cherokee, so I understood in my blood and family. And then I read the book about, I believe it was Deep Brown Walker, about the Trail of Tears and Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee.
Right.
That was pretty terrible.
Yeah.
Okay, so Buffalo Soldiers, Spanish-American War, they led the charge along with Roosevelt at San Juan Hill.
Right.
They had the highest casualties.
Right.
Okay, let's go to the next war, World War I. A bunch of our African-American, what do you call it, divisions, actually fought alongside the French.
Right. There's Jim, I guess the biggest thing that we have to be mindful of, and you said it a moment ago, was that level of fear. I always put fear with ignorance, right? Fear and ignorance is a horrible combination.
Yeah.
Right. Because if I operate in ignorance and I move on fear, then I'm going to make some big mistakes most of the time. Another word you use, assumptions. What we shouldn't do is jump to an assumption with anybody. We teach that literally in our office with couples. Don't assume, right? Try to at least give the person, give your mate the benefit of the doubt. We live in a nation where quite often the benefit of the doubt isn't given, right? You know, from history, we can't do anything about yesterday. We can't. It's good to know about our history, but we can't do anything about our history. But we can take care of the present and our future. We can make a big difference if we operate. And the key word that you said when we first began was about relationship.
And I think moving forward, I think one of the smartest things I've heard recently, blows me away. President Trump was saying, let's take Gaza and turn it into the Mecca of the East, the Riviera of the Mediterranean. Wait a minute, you're lifting all these people up. You're building a business for them. You're building all these things. That's what we did in the Marshall Plan. And it worked in England. I mean, it worked in Germany. It worked in Japan. So again, instead of killing them, bombing them, and here's one of the other things. And I've had several. I mean, I was not in country in Vietnam, but I know a lot of Vietnamese people. I don't think we ever should have been there.
Right.
That's just my opinion.
Right.
And as a result, we got relationships. Now, Vietnam is a destination for tourists.
Right.
Also, Vietnam, they took all of our old Navy yards and turned it into fantastic ship repair facilities. I mean, you talk about people who are hardworking.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and again, Jim, what I say is we can't do anything about the past, right? But again, what did you say? If we're not mindful of our past, then we're bound to repeat it. So now, moving from our present to our future, what are we going to do to change it? I was telling you earlier about my grandfather who was a sharecropper. Right. Yeah. And people, I don't know if they still sharecrop today or not.
Yeah, they do.
Do they?
It's got a different term.
Okay. Now. And so he was sharecropper. I'll never forget Mr. Webb. I remember the guy's name. I can see his face as I'm sitting here. Mr. Webb was the nicest guy. He was a white man. Of course, my grandfather was a black guy. But
not always.
He worked with my grandfather. My grandfather sharecropped. My grandfather, they put together an agreement. My grandfather worked the land. They shared the profit off the land until my grandfather could buy the land. Now that land belongs to not my parents. My mom has gone on into glory, but that land now belongs to the children. But it started with a relationship between, and my grandfather's father was a slave. So it started with a relationship between a white man and a black man to allow us the opportunity. You see what I'm saying? And quite often it's as simple as allowing an opportunity, not just figuring that, well, you are who you are, so you don't deserve an opportunity. We call America the land
of opportunity. That's why do you think the people are dying to get in here?
Right.
Again, I'm not going to make a judgment call about the illegal that came across the border. I'm simply going to say, let's figure out positive things.
let's
figure out ways. And there are bad people in that deal.
That's what I was going to say. For those, if you come across and you're doing bad things, you need to be dealt with. That's whether you're illegal or you were born here. I don't care, right? You break the law, then you pay the penalty for it. But there are good illegal aliens that are here that do good work. Now, let's do what's necessary to make them legal, right?
Aren't there a lot of them in Roswell?
Yeah.
That was a joke. I got you. I got you.
But
that's the next level.
Let's do what's necessary. There's a process in place, right? Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Well, I think the smart thing, again, is what Lincoln wanted to do, which was not a handout, but a hand up.
Exactly.
And I think some of the legislation and things that we have had, for instance, the Civil Rights Act was actually put together by Eisenhower, and then it was put in a few years later. Right. But also some of the welfare legislation was harmful instead of helpful.
Right.
Instead of a handout or hand up, it was hand out.
Right.
So let's start looking at how can we lift people up? How can we say, and one of the things they're talking about is doing away with the DEI. That's very hurtful and controversial to some people. Actually, I know a number of black people who have said, I think the whole discussion of that was harmful because it's basically saying, I'm not good enough. Yeah, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
So again, lift up. Right. Not throw out.
The pendulum swings both ways. Yeah. Right. And the problem that we normally have is if the pendulum is over here, then we push it too far the other way. And we don't want to put things in place to take time so that we get to that sweet spot, if you will. So we go back and forth. The pendulum is here, we move all the way over here, then we push it back, and we've got a dangerous swing that's going back. And it's like what is that thing that used to cut people's head off? The guillotine, right? Guillotine, yeah. And we get a guillotine because people are being killed, their bodies left in the wake. Instead of let's sit down again. Relationship and work this out together. Logic and reasoning. Yeah.
Let's go back to the military, though.
Okay.
One of the most interesting movies that I've ever seen is Red Tails.
Yes.
Tuskegee Airmen.
Yes, sir.
I actually met a Tuskegee Airman, sat next to him at a dinner.
Right.
His son was sitting across from me. And he had been a Tuskegee Airman who flew in the Korean conflict and flew in Vietnam.
Right.
He was a brigadier general.
Yeah.
And I looked at him and I said, Brigadier General Boggins, you made it from the bottom to the top in one of the most difficult times in American history.
Right.
What an amazing man you are. And he said, well, thank you.
Right.
And I said, I met somebody just as important that I was amazed by, and that was Martin Luther King. And he said, oh, you mean such and such? And he used a nickname, and I was like, you know him? He said, our fathers were both preachers. We grew up together.
Right.
We were best friends.
Yeah.
He called me all the time and would pray for me and vice versa.
Right.
What a thing. Again, a relationship. I wish I'd been able to really have a relationship with Martin Luther King. But I had a relationship with the foreman of my uncle's ranch, Uncle Pepper.
Right.
And Uncle Pepper, when I was having problems in school, he said, what's the matter, Jimmy Ed? I said, well, I'm failing biology. He said, you be here next weekend, you hear? I said, yes, Uncle Pepper. This big Buick pulls up. This big guy your size gets out, walks over, beautifully dressed. I says, I'm Dr. Such and Such. He was the head of the biology department in the Black College in Dallas. He and I go dove hunting. We shoot a bird, and he sits there and has me sit on the ground, and he takes a penknife, and we dissect it, and he starts talking about this bird.
Okay.
He got me interested in biology. Okay. What I found out is Uncle Pepper was known throughout North Texas as a healer and a philosopher. Healer that he could take care of animals, and a philosopher. And he taught me some lessons, which I've told you, that were amazing. And you know what? Most of the people in Corsicana who had heard of Uncle Pepper or knew a little bit about Uncle Pepper, oh, you mean Adrian? You know, he's just another ignorant. he might have been illiterate,
Right.
but he was anything but
Right.
ignorant.
Right.
And if he could pick up the phone and have the head of the biology department of a college
Right.
come to meet with me,
Exactly.
a high school kid,
Right.
wow. So the Tuskegee Airmen, what they did for America and what they did for the nation was beyond what they did in combat.
Right, right. Well, they proved, for one thing, they proved that the stereotypical mindset for, first of all, blacks to be able to fly, right? Secondly, for them to be able to be in combat. Thirdly, for them to be able to follow orders to that level, that they could do that. And not only could they do it, they could do it quite well.
Not only that, but you know, the number of bombers, once that they started escorting out of Italy, the number of bombers shot down by the Luftwaffe dropped so dramatically.
Right, right.
That basically from then on, the bomber squadrons were calling for those red tail guys.
Right.
And it was when they went and found the 99th Squadron, and they're sitting there in Jeeps going, hey, we want to find those pilots of the red tail guys. And the movie, and the black guys are saying, yeah, well, that's us. What?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. But again, the expectation and what I thought versus what I learned. And once I learned, that's the pivotal point. Jim, if I think something about you because of your race, your creed, your color, your culture, whatever, if I think something about you and then I meet you and I learn differently, then the question is, do I take that difference into consideration, or do I still hold on to my past idiosyncrasies, my past mindset, and refuse to accept the truth, right? Biblically, you shall know the truth. John 8:32. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall not set you. John said, the truth shall make you free. And if we'll accept the truth, this country would change overnight. This country would change overnight if we didn't play politics, if we would just settle in on the truth. Here's what we need. Here's what we need to do. I can work with you. You can work with me. We all have the same. Hey, let's continue to make this country better and get back to where we used to be, a one nation under God.
Under God. I hate to tell you, Cedric, we were founded with that, but it wasn't one nation under God. There was two nations.
Right.
But we can go forward. We can go way forward, and we can do things coming together. And we can work in educational, we can work in military, we can work in all areas. I do love the military, though, from the standpoint of we started working together. And I think when I was there in 1967, there was still a lot of prejudice.
Oh, yeah.
There's probably some today, but I went aboard the Truman. It's colorblind.
Amen. The way it should be.
Except for the pilots, because you got to be able to see red and green. That's another. I got you. All right, we're going to be back in just a minute, and I keep promising we're going to tell you how to find us. And I'm going to make Cedric do that to me. This is fun. Share this, but especially share it with the young generation. Go to Wikipedia. Here's a story about young Buffalo soldiers. Here's African Americans in the American Revolution. Learn the history so that we don't repeat it. We don't want to be a Germany after World War I that repeated World War II and killed unbelievable number of people.
Yes.
We want to be making this nation come together. We'll be right back after these words. Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Heart's Ministry, and Symbios Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation. If you got a question or a comment, you can get me at jim@veteransimpactshow.com. That's pretty simple. jim@veteransimpactshow.com. I welcome your comment, good, bad, or indifferent, especially I like hearing how great we are. I'm sorry. And we're doing a lot to work with the new government, work with the VA, We want to turn this situation around and help people throughout the United States.
Yes.
Now, in order to do that, where we can help you, you got to share us. So you can obviously go to YouTube. You can go to Facebook, Veterans Impact Show. Cedric, you navigated Roku because we've been working with Dave Brunner and DBTV, and it's not quite as simple as flipping on your cable.
Right.
So tell us a little bit how you found it.
For you go out to Roku, there's that, any Fire Stick you can get there, and you download DBTV as an app. Once you download DBTV, you can find us, I believe it's at 11 a.m. Central.
On Saturdays, yes.
On Saturdays. And the wonderful thing is, if you can't get us at 11 a.m. on Saturdays, you can always go out to Veterans Impact Show on Facebook and find us out there on Facebook and YouTube.
Yeah, and the main thing is what we want to do is, again, help, hope, and heal.
Yes.
We want you to share this. If you belong to a VFW, share it. These are important things. We have had some of the most incredible people on. We have had, it's from Medal of Honor winners to admirals to generals to master sergeants.
VFW, we had the Texas
American
Veteran
Legion,
Commission, all
the
of those
VA.
guys. Yeah.
And we're looking forward. We had Secretary Wilkie on under the first Trump administration, and I was talking with the PAO, and I think we're going to be able to have Doug Collins come on, and I'm looking forward to that. Cedric, I think it's also so important that people tune into your Healing Hearts Church.
Yes.
And again, tell us how we can look at that.
At 12:30 every Sunday, we're on heartfellowship.church because it's all about the heart. Everything we do, it's about the heart, right? Getting below the surface. And so heartfellowship.church, check us out. Also, Healing Thine Hearts, we do counseling for families, for relationships, for veterans. We provide special pricing for veterans. And for those of you who are watching, listen, if you have someone that they're veteran, they're military, they provide some level of help, some level of hope, some level of healing, some level of resource, that we'd love to have them on the show. Call
Absolutely.
us. Give us a call.
Yeah.
What is it, Jim, at veteransimpactshow.com.
Or, and my number is on the website, 214-502-4600. Please call, but not after 9 o'clock at night. And I got to tell you, I get up at 5 and I go work out every morning that I can. That's the other thing. You got to be passionate about taking care of yourself. And that's why the healing is part of this hope and help. We're here to help you have hope and heal.
Yes.
And it's healing physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Yes.
And that's important. So, Cedric, I like to close with a prayer.
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's your turn.
My turn?
Yeah, you're
I'll
the
do
minister.
it.
You're my pastor.
No problem at all.
All
no
right.
problem. So our Father God in heaven, we thank you. We thank you for even the time that we're celebrating the thing that we're recognizing right now. And that is that this country has come a long way. We've still got a long way to go. But Father, with relationship with you and with relationship with one another, we can make it happen. Father God, this country will come back to being one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We thank you, Lord. We ask for your help, for your hope and your healing in everything we do. In your mighty Son's name, we pray. Amen.
A special prayer and thank you for Symbios, who is one of our sponsors, Integrative Health here in Dallas. We're going to grow it nationwide. We want to thank you, Fairway Independent Mortgage, the largest non-bank mortgage company in the nation. I work for them. My MLS number is 311-548. Theirs is 2289. We are an equal opportunity lender. Please get in touch with us. Send us an email. Share it. And if you do, and just as Cedric said, if you got somebody you think would be really worthy and we could help them, we want to. You're going to take a look. We had Ryan Prevail on this morning, and he's got a great deal to help you go to college. So I got to tell you, please join us and be a part.
You know what one other thing, Jim, not just a special guest, but if you know of a resource that will be helpful to veterans, to military, let us know about it. We'd like to promote that because, again, we're H3, help, hope, and healing. That's what we want to do. So anything that you know, we don't know it all, but we're trying to get the word out. So help us to do that. Give us a call.
All right. Goodbye. Great day. And thank you again
God bless.
for being part of Veterans Impact Show.